Fury grew in the Middle East after Trump ordered the United States to strike nearly 20 Iranian targets in a military response that shook the entire Gulf this Wednesday, June 10, 2026. As Trump tightens the siege on Iran, the American Congress remains divided over the limits of military power. Israel attacks Hezbollah in Lebanon again. The Houthis keep up the pressure against Israel. China tests Taiwan at sea. Taiwan responds with a live fire exercise. And Ukraine pushes Russia into a logistics crisis in Crimea. What has Trump achieved and how are these points surprisingly connected? Why did Iran respond and activate its terrorists in the region? How does this pressure change the board in multiple ways? I'll tell you all about it in a moment. If you like this kind of straightforward and no-nonsense content, consider subscribing because here, there's a video like this every day. The United States attacked sites linked to Iranian defense after the Apache went down near the Strait of Hormuz. The version released by Washington states that the aircraft was on a regional patrol when it was shot down or lost amid Iranian action. The two soldiers were rescued with the support of an unmanned vessel. This is an important detail because it shows that the American operation in the region was already prepared for a crisis at sea, not just for regular patrols. Trump's response came quickly. The United States Central Command stated that the operation was of a self-defense nature and that the actions were concluded after a few hours. Even so, the scale of the attacks drew attention. According to American officials cited in international news, nearly 20 Iranian targets were hit. The list included air defenses, control stations, surveillance radars. Iran tried to turn the blow into a show of strength. The Revolutionary Guard announced retaliatory attacks against United States bases in Bahrain, Kuwait, and Jordan. Jordan intercepted missiles launched against the Al-Azraq base. Kuwait declared it had intercepted hostile aerial targets. Bahrain also activated its defenses. As of the initial assessments, there was no confirmation of major damage to American bases, which weakened the Iranian narrative of a decisive response. Trump increased the pressure even further by saying that Iran took too long to negotiate and that now it would pay the price. That statement took the crisis to another level because it wasn't just a response to the Apache, it was a direct demand regarding Tehran's behavior in the negotiations. The American government had been trying to maintain a balance between military pressure and diplomatic openness, but the attack on the helicopter gave Trump a clear justification to act without waiting for another round of talks. The problem is that this reaction also caused a split in Washington. Part of Congress sees the operation as legitimate self-defense. Another part fears that Trump is expanding a military campaign without broader authorization. The discussion revolves around war powers, because attacks near Hormuz, even if described as limited, can turn into a sequence of responses and counter-responses. For Trump, the message is simple. If Iran touches an American soldier, they lose infrastructure. For critics, the concern is knowing how far this logic will go before pushing the United States into a larger war. Israel has entered the same state of alert. In southern Lebanon, the Israeli Defense Forces have resumed attacks on areas linked to Hezbollah, including the Tyre region, where the conflict has become more tense, with evacuation orders and new deaths reported by Lebanese authorities. Israel claims to be targeting terrorist infrastructure. Hezbollah tries to hide among civilian areas and uses drones to wear down armored vehicles, trucks, and Israeli positions. This is what increases the risk for Tehran. Its allies keep opening parallel fronts, but Israel shows willingness to respond without waiting for the crisis with Trump to cool down. The Houthis also appear on this board as an extension of the pressure against Israel and against maritime routes. The group backed by Iran had already launched missiles toward Israel and maintains the strategy of sowing regional instability. The goal is to wear down, increase costs, and spread tension. But the political effect can also backfire, because each new attack reinforces the argument made by Trump and Israel that the Iranian axis only understands pressure. China took advantage of the global climate to increase its provocation, close to inequality. Chinese ships began operating east of the island, questioning commercial vessels and trying to assert jurisdiction in waters that Taiwan rejects as being under Chinese control. Taipei responded by saying that Beijing uses false law enforcement to expand its power and intimidate navigation. The crisis is not directly related to Apache, but it fits into the same pattern. While the United States is under pressure in the Middle East, China is testing limits in Asia. Taiwan did not stop at just protesting. Taiwanese forces carried out a live-fire exercise, simulating a response to a Chinese landing attempt. Artillery, rockets, and defense units were put into operation to show that Taipei does not intend to passively watch Beijing's naval pressure. The message was tough, without the need for a long speech. If China tries to create facts at sea, Taiwan shows its readiness on land and internally. In the war in Ukraine, Russia also received a series of blows that matches the climate of pressure against regimes opposed to the West. Crimea, controlled by Moscow, began to face gasoline rationing after Ukrainian attacks on supply lines. The problem isn't just a lack of fuel for civilians. The sensitive point is Russian military logistics. Without fuel, ammunition, and transportation, troops are stuck. Artillery loses momentum and reinforcements arrive late. The Chonhar Bridge has become a central piece in this crisis. Ukrainian forces hit the link that connects occupied Crimea to the occupied territory in southern Ukraine, precisely a route used to move soldiers, ammunition, and fuel. The strike cut off a logistical artery and increased Russian dependence on more vulnerable routes. When a bridge like this goes out of operation, Russia doesn't just lose concrete. It loses time, loses responsiveness, and loses security in its supply lines. The case of Kimburn Spit is a sign of deeper wear and tear. Information cited by Ukrainian sources points to a Russian withdrawal from the area due to lack of supplies, losses, and difficulty maintaining positions. Even if the front remains largely unchanged, the retreat has symbolic and military importance. It demonstrates Ukraine's campaign against logistics is not Russia. Ucraniana contra logística não é barulho. When the troops have to leave because they can't get food, ammunition, and fuel, the defensive line starts to rot from within. Ukraine has also increased long-range attacks inside Russia. Industrial and energy targets were hit, including a military factory in Cheboksary linked to components used in Russian drones and missiles, and a refinery in the Samara region. What happened most is that Russia was hit by a group. That's why Russia is becoming a major war agency. That's the logic, it's clear. If Russia bombs Ukrainian cities, Ukraine targets the gears that keep the Russian war machine running. There have also been attacks against oil infrastructure, pumping stations, and vessels linked to the so-called Russian shadow fleet. This fleet is used to try to circumvent sanctions and keep money flowing into the war effort. By targeting this type of infrastructure, what Kiev wants is to cut off revenue, fuel, and logistical capacity at the same time. It's less about spectacle and more about calculation. Every destroyed tank, every refinery shut down, and every disrupted route has an impact on the battlefield days later. The opposing axis tries to act on several fronts, but it's also starting to feel the weight of the responses. Tehran saw its radars and defenses turn to dust. Beijing got a message from Taiwan. Moscow is facing fuel shortages, a damaged bridge, and military factories in the crosshairs. The pressure is mounting because weakness, when it shows, invites attack. And Trump decided to show that Iran won't shoot down an American aircraft and just walk away pretending nothing happened. I'm Milson Alves, International Affairs Specialist. And my purpose is to keep you well informed with the truth every day. The news links are in the video description. Leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and at the end, check out the comments so you can be even more engaged with the Milson Alves community.